How's everybody this afternoon? Thank you for coming out in the rain. It's supposed to be Memorial Day, right? It feels like Thanksgiving, right? Are you all set for our guest this afternoon? Okay. So, my guest this afternoon, Billy Porter, does it all. Actor, singer, writer, director, and recording artist. He has returned to Broadway in the career-defining role of Lola in the hit musical Kinky Boots. He has already won the Outer Critics Circle and Drama Desk Awards for his performance, and he is nominated for the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical. He made his Broadway debut in Miss Saigon and went on to Five Guys Named Mo, Grease, and Smokey Joe's Cafe. Billy created and starred in his critically acclaimed one-man show, Ghetto Superstar, The Man That I Am, at the Public Theater. He co-starred as Belize in the Signature Theater's production of Tony Kushner's Angels in America, one of the most amazing stage performances I have ever seen. Other shows include Dreamgirls, The Merchant of Venice, Radiant Baby, Birdie Blue, Songs for a New World, Top Dog Underdog, King Lear, and The Further Adventures of Hedda Gabler. His film and television work include The Broken Hearts Club, Noel, Shake, Rattle, and Roll, Law and Order, and The Big C. He has directed such shows as The Wiz, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, the music of Stevie Wonder, which starred Chaka Khan, and Being Alive, the soul of Stephen Sondheim. His recordings include Billy Porter Untitled and At the Corner of Broadway and Soul. Please welcome Billy Porter. So here we are. So first of all, welcome back to Broadway.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about, right? How many people have seen Kinky Boots? Woo! Let's talk about your amazing return to this show. How did the role of Lola come about for you?
Well, yes, is it not on?
No one turned you on. We had to turn you on.
Sorry. Hi, I thought it was, I was like, all right. How did it come to be? Well, I saw the movie initially in the movie theater, and I fell in love with the character of Lola, and I thought, wow, if I lived in London, maybe I would have had an opportunity to play this role, which I felt had the possibility to be career-defining for me, because as an African-American, gay, Christian out man in this world, there doesn't seem to be many opportunities for us. There hadn't seemed to be many opportunities for me to expand beyond, a certain level. And I felt like I had hit a glass ceiling. And so I thought, wow, that's a great role. I would dream of a role like that someday. And then, a couple of years later, there was an announcement on Playbill.com and Broadway.com that said that they were turning it into a musical. And, they announced the creative team, and Jerry Mitchell and I are old friends from way back. And I had taken some time off from performing, and I was writing and directing and sort of creating in that way and kind of trying to find my way and find my voice like that. And so I knew that there were people that probably thought that I was done. And so I needed to sort of make it clear that if there was anything that I would come out of semi-retirement for, it would be this part. So it was also Angels in America, too. So I called Jerry and I said, whatever I have to do, I'm ready, willing, and able to do to, be on the radar for this opportunity.
Yeah, because your performance is the perfect blending of artist and material.
Thank you.
Right? So where did you begin to create her, and what did you draw on personally?
It's such an interesting question because I don't for one moment want anybody to think that I'm not an actor and that there's not craft involved in terms of how I put this character together. But the reality is, like you said, you know, it's such a blessing when a character and the actual human being can come together and sort of fit so like a glove. And, you know, the only thing that I can say is that the last 43 years of my life have led to me being able to embody this character. That's really what it's been. And that's really what I drew on, and that's really where I started.
Did she change a lot between the readings, the workshop, out of town, and then Broadway?
Yeah. I mean, you know, thankfully, the entire show came into focus and got cleaner and got sharper. And, you know, as a result, you know, Lola became more grounded and more well-rounded and more specific. And, you know, we had a wonderful creative team that actually knows what the process is, and knows that, you know, a piece of art is never birthed, fully formed, and you have to sort of see it and experience the work in front of that final scene partner, who is the audience, which then tells you what's working and what isn't. So yeah, it changed a lot.
Yeah. How vocally demanding is the role? I don't know how you do what you do 8 times a week. You know, I know you have a voice from God, but I mean, when you put it all together, I mean, did you work on a certain range? Or
I did. You know, there are 2 sort of parts of my singing trajectory. The first part, I will say, is pre-9/11. The second is post-9/11. I was living in LA when 9/11 happened, and on September 12th, 2001, I lost my voice. And I lost it to acid reflux, and it was acid reflux disease. That was sort of the diagnosis, but there was a lot of other emotional stuff that was going on simultaneously that required me to go deeper emotionally so that I could really find my voice. You know, I lived for the first half of my career in a place where it didn't matter what I had gone through in my life. It didn't matter how broken I was. I could scream the roof off the joint and that was okay. And I wanted to be sort of known and respected for something that was deeper than that, but I personally did not have the courage to let that other thing go, you know? And so I know in retrospect that God, the universe, whatever it is that we call it, you know, sort of swooped in and kind of took away the thing that made me not take the journey so that I would have to take the journey. And I knew it immediately. I knew that that's what it was. You know, when your entire identity is sort of rooted and based in what you do, there is no possible way for you to grow beyond that. And I knew that there was something deeper than just my voice. I knew that I had something more to say. than just showing up and, you know, singing Beauty School Dropout with 14 inches of orange rubber hair on my head. Not that it was, you know, I had a wonderful time, but like there was a deeper place that I wanted to go with my work. And so, yeah, it was that part of The Voice that then led me to how I approached the construction of this character, because it was less about me having to prove something, just literally that translates in terms of, oh, well, how high can you sing? Because for the first part of my life, that was what it was. It was like I could sing higher than anybody on the planet, so I would just show up and do that wherever I went, you know? And so I can't do that anymore. It's not a part of my DNA anymore. I've had to let that go. I've had to drop into something that's far deeper than that. And so I constructed the vocal demands of the character around that. You know, I say, you know, jokingly, but truthfully, you know, everything's in my 40-year-old keys now. I'll leave the screaming to the children. It's on record. I already did it. It's on record. I did it. I started it.
That's classic.
It's so funny because there's a, you know, I am surrounded by this wonderful group of guys, and they're called the Angels, and you know, there are some high screaming bitches up in there. And it was so great to like walk into the rehearsal room and have a whole gaggle of people that were singing higher than me. And I was like, thank you, God. They can sing. Y'all can sing all the way up there. I'm going to stay right here in the middle and in the front. Let y'all do all the screaming.
Oh, I love it. That is classic. The 40-year-old, I love that.
My 40-year-old keys, honey, that's how I can do it.
They're amazing.
I don't sing above an A. I don't sing above an A, but what's interesting is that it's not about that.
Yeah.
And it's never been about that. And I've known that it's never been about that. But I had to go through that other thing to sort of be able to present it to the world properly.
Aren't you glad that you went through it?
I am. Yeah. I am. I can't say that
Yeah.
I can't say that it was easy, and I can't say that in the middle of the journey I understood why it was taking so long. You know, it was like, well, yeah, I understand. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, I understand the journey. Can we do this quicker? Can we get through this quicker? Yeah. You know, but it takes what it takes what it takes. Yeah. And I think that the process for me was about learning patience. The process for me was about learning presence and being present and being grateful and being in the moment that you're in. And understanding that that's the only place that you can be. Yeah. Anybody, anywhere, doing anything. You know?
Yeah. It's made you an even better artist, I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you.
So you have this amazing chemistry with your co-star, Stark Sands, who
yes.
I absolutely adore in this show, too, who plays Charlie. Tell me about working together and what that's been like.
Well, I always say that, you know, Stark is my rock. Yeah. And, you know, he's the yin to my yang. He is grounded. He's selfless. His performance is ego-free. And he understands the archetypes of how the story needs to be told. He understands that he's the straight man, you know. And I'm just so grateful for that, you know, because his power and his strength allows for me to be the Tasmanian devil that I'm written to be. You know, it's like I have the the role that's over the top. You know, I have the role that it's necessary for me to do that. His role is not that. You know, his role is the straight man. You know, it's existed since the beginning of time. You know, and so I'm so grateful that the public in general has been able to understand that and recognize how brilliant he really, really is. You know, because it's easy to look at the show and go, oh, well, Billy Porter walks away with the show. And it's like, no, there wouldn't be a necessity for Lola if he weren't there. You know, he's the eyes of the audience that allows the audience into my world. If he didn't exist, I don't think that the audience would be so willing to take the journey with me, and thus the journey with the two of us.
Beautifully crafted show. So I was going to ask you about the creative team. What a dynamite creative team. Cyndi Lauper, right. Harvey Fierstein, Jerry Mitchell. Yeah. What has it been like working with them and creating this show with them?
Well, to speak of Harvey and Cyndi first, they are, I think, sort of the godfathers of understanding how to take a singularity in sort of who they are and turn it into something that's creative and productive and can kind of reach the masses. And I think as an artist, you know, one of the biggest goals is to be able to reach the people. It doesn't matter how brilliant it is. If it doesn't reach the people, then what's the point? And so I think, you know, they have sort of cornered the market on that, being individual and understanding how to turn that individuality into something that resonates. So I feel very blessed to have them sort of in charge of helping me tell that story. Then you have somebody like Jerry Mitchell who loves the theater and who loves the musical theater so much, you know, and he honors the form. He understands how uniquely American it is. He doesn't come into the process with an ego that thinks that his brilliance is going to make the form better. He understands the rules. He understands how to entertain. He unabashedly, unapologetically goes completely there without apology, while at the same time maintaining the craft of storytelling. And I think that there's something so brilliant about that, you know, that sometimes we get, you know, in this day and age, we get away from, because, for lack of a better phrase, it doesn't feel fresh. It doesn't feel new. It doesn't feel edgy. You know, perhaps, I don't know what the, you know, I don't read anything, but, you know, it's like, no, he's the guy that understands that if there's a treadmill on stage and we don't end up dancing on the treadmills, you're a dummy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're a dummy. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about the understanding that you can't, it's like, you know, it's like the going into a sort of more of a more dramatic thing. You know, it's like the rule is if you pull out a gun on a stage and you don't use it, put the gun away. You can't pull out a gun and then not use, you can't wave a gun around and then not use it. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. It's the same principle in musical comedy. It's like there are just rules. It's like you got to have a button. You got to have an 11 o'clock number. You got to stop. You got to know when to stop the show. You got to know when to bring it down. You got to know how to open it. You got to know how to close the first act. You got to know how to close the second act. He knows how to do that in a way that I am so grateful for, you know, because there aren't a lot of them left. There aren't a lot of them left that know how to do that or care to do it.
Right? Well, he worked with the masters. He worked, and you learn from the best. If you're smart enough, you take away, you know, you learn from them. Because Jerry can create a showstopper and then turn you into a poignant moment 2 seconds later.
Yeah.
Which I want to get into because one of the most beautiful moments for me in the show is I'm Not My Father's Son. For those of you who've seen the show, that number is so beautiful. And I understand Jerry gave the two of you sort of free rein to sort of do the number, and it never changed after that, didn't it? It was sort of set from the beginning. Talk about the creation of that number.
Well, it was the first song that I learned when I came in to do a reading. They handed me that song. And, you know, just to preface this, my relationship with my father, both of my fathers, my stepfather and my biological father, were strained at best. You know, and there was a lot of sort of pent up stuff that I was still carrying around with me. And I heard this song and I just looked at Cyndi Lauper and Stephen Arepas in the room and I was like, really? You really want me to sing this? Like, do you know, like, I mean, I knew Stephen, but I didn't know Cyndi. And I was like, it's like you wrote my life. Like, my life is right here on the page. You know, so there's that, walking into the situation. The other part about it is that, you know, speaking of the first half of my career, you know, there was a flamboyance and a sort of over-the-top energy that I naturally have that I can bring to things. And when you come to New York City, you try to get in, you try to get attention, so you play your trump card. And my trump card was that I could do this thing. And blow the roof off the joint. Now, I always assumed that from there, I would be able to then expand into something that had more depth. That was not happening, which is why I had to sort of step back and look at my career and go, okay, well, if I want to make a difference or a change, I'm going to have to extract myself from this for a while and figure out how to do what I want to do. So with that, coming back full circle into this show and having a role like Lola, who is completely over the top and completely flamboyant and fun and fabulous, but then has the moment where it drops in to a place that's so real and so honest and so full of depth that you can no longer discount this human being as a clown, was exactly what I was asking for. It's exactly what I asked the universe, God, for. It's exactly what I asked him for, him or her or whatever you believe in, for. You know, so it's my favorite moment as well, because it's the moment where, and it's not very often, but it's the moment where if there's any sort of resistance from the audience about Lola, if there are any arms folded, if there are any lips pursed, you know, because she's just a little bit too fabulous and a little bit too fierce, you know, and surprisingly and interestingly enough, the people who have the most problem with it are the gay boys between the ages of 30 and 50. They're the ones who will sit closest and be like this. But when Not My Father's Son comes around, they gag. And it's the moment where they go, oh, she's not just a drag. She's not, oh, okay, sorry. And it completely opens up. And I love that about this show. You know, it masquerades as one thing, and then we get you in there, and it's like, bam! It's not what you thought. It's not what you thought. You know, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. Anybody. You know, I love that about this show. I really, really do. Screaming, just screaming.
Because I think it's the simplest.
Yelling. I have a
yelling.
mic. Why am I yelling? She's passionate.
Fabulous. It's the most beautiful moment for me in the show too. I just think it just sits there. It's just the two of you doing what you do in that room.
Thank you.
So just brilliant. Now you have your 11 o'clock number, which blows me away too in the second act, Hold Me in Your Heart. Mm-hmm. Are you drained at the end of that? I mean, the emotional journey you take through the show, but the emotional journey you take through that song.
Okay. The process of doing 8 shows a week in general, for everybody who's in this community that does 8 shows a week, is completely draining. Let's just say that to start, right? It's a job. It's our job. Anybody who goes to work and works for 8 hours a day understands that after your 8 hour a day, no matter what it is that you do, you're tired, right? So yeah, in that sense, yes, it can be tiring, but I'm not gonna sit here and have the conversation about being so exhausted as an actor that has a dream role to play. I'm not gonna do that, you know, because I've waited all my life for this. So simultaneously, at the same time, it's completely empowering and completely energizing. So yeah, I'm dead at the end of the show, and then I go home and can't get to sleep till 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I'm just like, because I get to tell this story every day. I get to show up and tell this story to 1,444 people. I think it's 1,444 people. Every single day. You know, this story, specifically this story. You know, and it's empowering and it's completely energizing. So it's dual. Yeah, I'm tired, but no, I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. They're all on their feet at the end of the show. I mean, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I mean, is that, you know, you live for the moment in your life where you can have the kind of material that connects with people, that can be fun, that can be entertaining, and that has a point.
Beautifully put. I want to go back to the beginning for a second because you grew up in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Did you have any artistic outlets to express yourself at a young age growing up?
Well, I started singing in church, so that was my sort of first foray into understanding that I enjoyed music and I could just sing. I just knew that I could sing and I just could sing. And then I went to Rosenstein Middle School and I was being bused. It was right when sort of desegregation was in full swing. And I'm a lot older than I look, but black don't crack. So, you know, it was post-civil rights. You know, we were living in the, so, you know, I was being bused from my black neighborhood to sort of neutral ground. And I was moderately intelligent. So I was, you know, in they call them accelerated classes. And so basically, you know, not to offend anybody, but I was in a room of, you know, 30 people and there were like 3 black people in the room. So I felt out of place. I didn't know what to do. And they had these after-school programs, and we got a book about this thick, just that were filled with these after-school programs. And I went through it and went through it and went through it. And I came across this after-school program called Rosenstein Musical Theater. And I didn't know what theater was, but I knew that musical meant maybe I could sing or play an instrument. I was in the band already. And So I went to the first meeting, and Betsy Schmidt was who came to the show like 3 weeks ago. Explained to us what a musical was, and that we were going to do a musical, and next week we were gonna have auditions, and so I was like, oh, this sounds like fun. And then it was my birthday week, and my grandmother and my great aunt had purchased for me to see The Wiz. And it was the first thing that I had ever seen. And I was like, oh, this is a musical. This is what she was talking about. And, this is great. And incidentally, that tour starred Lily as White as Dorothy, first of all. Which later, long time ago, I pulled out the program from my basement and was like, oh my God, and like the whole cast was like people I knew. So I fell in love with the song Home. I went to my music teacher and I was like, I just saw The Wiz. I want to sing this song called Home. She found the music for me. She found the album for me. I learned the song. I came back. I sang it the next week. And I got cast as, I want to say, Gus Fielding in Babes in Arms. And, there were like 400 people in the show. So everything was double cast except for me. So I got to do all 4 performances that we rehearsed for every Wednesday after school from October to May. But it was so much fun, because it was this thing that I found. So we did the show, we did the performance, but I thought, this is great. This is a good, outlet for me. But, I don't sing like this. This is like, I wish I were in love again. It was like, oh, that's great, whatever. So then I was at home, and some people know this story, but I was at home washing the dishes on the second Sunday of June in 1982, I think it was.
82.
And the Tony Awards came on, and I didn't know who Tony was. But I saw people on stage, and then all of a sudden, they introduced Dreamgirls. And not only were these people black, but they were stunningly beautiful. They were in amazing clothes. They weren't slaves. It wasn't like I was watching Roots. Not that there was a problem with that, but it wasn't common at that point to see those types of images. And then Jennifer Holliday sang, and I'm not going, and I was like, I literally sunk to the floor and was in a heaving pile of goo, crying and weeping. And my mother was like, what is your problem? And it was just the moment where I thought, oh, because growing up in the church, when they sense that that's something special about you, because it's such an insular world, the only thing they understand is to say that you're supposed to be a preacher, a man of God, go into the ministry. And people sensed that there was something special about me. So I was being pushed in this direction to be a preacher. And when I saw that moment, I was like, my ministry is that. That's what my ministry is. It's that. It's not standing behind a pulpit. It's that. And that changed my life.
Well, you went to Carnegie Mellon.
Yes.
What got you to New York?
It was very interesting. I lived in Pittsburgh, and there's a lot of stuff going on in Pittsburgh, and I couldn't actually get arrested for any work, any summer work. And when you're in college and you're going to the school, Carnegie Mellon was a, what do we call it? Conservatory program. There are all these jobs that you're supposed to get. I wasn't getting any of them. And I just thought, okay, well, if I'm going to be working at McDonald's, I should probably go to New York and work at McDonald's. I can go to New York and work at McDonald's. I could learn the subway. I could learn the city. I can get a feel of where I am. And, so the summer of my sophomore year, I started spending the summers in New York, and my best friend, Ty Taylor, who's now a part of a band called Vintage Trouble that's also blowing up all over the world right now. They're opening for The Who, they're, opening for the Rolling Stones. They've been on all the talk shows and stuff. This isn't about him, but I'm just so proud of him. So anyway, he lived in Montclair, New Jersey, so I stayed with him. I would commute back and forth, and I would go to auditions a lot. And so I started going to these open calls, and, I started getting work out of New York over the summer. The fall of my sophomore year, the fall of my junior year, I had auditioned for a show. I basically got this show at the Public called Romance in Hard Times, which was William Finn's show that starred Lillias White and Cleavon Derricks, and I was an understudy. I understudied Victor Cook in that, and that happened the Christmas break of my junior year. So I came up, and I was here for 6 weeks, and I literally understudied at the Public, so that was my first job here. And then, right before I went back to school, there was an open call for Miss Saigon. And I went to the open call at the Equity Building, and it was literally 2,000 people. And I sang my 8 bars and got on a plane and went back to school. And a week later, I got a call back. There were 2 of us called back from that call. I flew back in. I did the call back. And then I went back to school. The show was canceled, because of all of that controversy back then about the, bringing people from England and da-da-da-da-da, and he wasn't Asian and all of this stuff. And then I went to, this is a conversation, so I'm telling the whole story. But, right. So then there was a audition in Pittsburgh, and I would go to auditions all the time, and I try to tell my students this all the time. It's like, you can't get a job unless you go to the audition. So there was a Cats came through town, and they were having an open call in Pittsburgh. And I went to the open call in Pittsburgh, and I did my little double pirouette, and I was cut. And I was a dansoir at the time. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening, but okay. And so as I went to collect my bags, somebody stood up from the audience and said, "Billy Porter, would you please stay?" And I was like, okay. So I came to the front, and they started asking me all these questions. So, are you from Pittsburgh? Yes. What are you doing in Pittsburgh? I'm in school here. And they were asking me all these questions. And they said, well, we don't think you're right for Cats because you're too short to be you're too tall to be a kitten, and you're too short to be a full-grown cat. Let's marinate in that for a moment. Said, okay. There were strict height requirements. It was like the kittens were 5'7" and below, and the cats were 5'11" and above. It was this crazy thing, whatever. So we were having the conversation, and he said, so we don't think that you're right for Cats, but we do think that you're right for Miss Saigon. And I was like, okay, well, I auditioned for that. And they were like, yeah, we know. We're the same people. And it was Vinnie Liff. And it was David Caddick, who's the musical supervisor of all those shows. And they recognized me and knew me. And they said, so then David Caddick said, well, would you mind coming back and singing for us? And I said, sure. And he's like, I'd love to hear if you could sing something that was a little less R&B. So, let me just say, now in the breakdown for Miss Saigon, they said pop rock, right? I sang my little song. I sang Pity the Child, which was the most popular song at the time for a high tenor to sing. At the end of that song, it says ad lib. Ad lib means sing what you want, not what the white man sang on the record. Sing what you want. That's what I know ad lib to be, right? So even though I had sung note for note what was on the page, and then when it said ad lib, I went off. They didn't know if I could not be pop or R&B, like if I couldn't be, gospelian as I was, basically. Because my mama always says you can take the man out the church, but you can't take the church out the man. So I said, I got something for you. Because this is when I was still in school. I was studying heavily. And so I just happened to have Nessun Dorma in my bag that I had been working on. And I came back down there and I sang that Nessun Dorma in Italian with my hand in the crook of the grand piano. And David Caddick was like, well, I guess you can. I said, don't come for me. Don't come for me. Yes.
Classic.
You have to be specific with what you ask for. You said pop rock, but y'all don't really want pop rock. You want white people pop rock. Let's make it plain. You want musical theater pop rock. This was in the 90s, though. It's gotten a little bit, it's opened up a little bit. But it's a funny story, and I don't mean to disparage anyone. It was funny. But that's the story. We're having a conversation.
Perfect. Right?
We're having a conversation.
Okay, so before American Idol, there was this phenomenon known as Star Search.
Yes, there was.
Now, did you win the 1992 male vocalist grand champion?
Why are you asking me that question? Yes, of course, I did.
Perfect. I loved this show. What are your memories? That was, to me, that was like the epitome. Forget American Idol. I thought Star Search was it. Ed McMahon. Let's talk about Ed McMahon and doing that show.
Well, I was in Miss Saigon at the time. And Hinton Battle was like a consultant or something for I can't remember what it was, but he had an in to the Star Search people. And he was talking about it one day and I was like, well, I want to be on Star Search. He was like, send me a video, give me a video, I'll send it away. So I had just done a cabaret show. So I got a cut of the video. I gave it to him. He sent it away. And like a week later, they were like, come on, Star Search. So I literally it happened so fast. I flew out, and they would film on the weekends, and they would film multiple episodes on the weekends. So I went out, and I was on the last 2 episodes of the season. No, wait. The last 4 episodes of the season. And then the semifinals and the finals. So I was out there from a weekend to a weekend. So the first weekend I got there, and I took my vacation from Miss Saigon to do it. So I went out on a Friday. I did 2 shows on that Saturday, won them both, then had a week in between, came back on Saturday, did the last 2 shows of the season, won those both, and then Sunday did the semifinals and the finals, and won the. So in a week, I won the whole thing.
Won the whole thing in a week.
Yeah.
Was it exciting? What was Ed McMahon like?
Ed McMahon was the sweetest. By this point, he had stopped drinking, and he was the most. He was the warmest and sweetest, and we were friends. And he would call and check up on me, and he would have me out to Los Angeles to sing for, things for him, and sing at his church, and sing at his birthday party, and so we remained friends, and until his death, he was a wonderful, wonderful man.
Did you kick off your recording career right after Star Search?
No, it took a little bit longer because I was on Star Search, 10 years after it premiered. So the reach of it had kind of faded a little bit, you know, so it was syndicated, but, you know, sometimes it came on at like 3 a.m, sometimes it came on Saturdays at noon, you know, like it just depended upon where you were. And so, you know, it was a little bit of an uphill battle for me, uphill journey. Let me rephrase the language because I don't want it to feel like it's negative, but, you know, it was an uphill journey for me because I was also in the theater, and, you know, theater wasn't cool in the music industry, so I had to sort of kind of try to dispel all of that stuff too. And, you know, it didn't help that I was gay, and I was trying to not talk about it, which, you know, in retrospect, it's like withholding information is lying too. So, you know, there was a whole lot of stuff that was sort of brewing in kind of the journey towards trying to get a record deal.
Yeah. You know, earlier you started to talk about Grease. Mm-hmm. You stopped the show every night as Teen Angel, wearing that big hair or whatever. Did you have a good time doing that?
I did. You know, it's a bittersweet moment for me because, and I talk about this once again, let me preface this with, there's nothing negative about it.
Yeah.
But if I'm being fully honest, A, Grease is not my favorite show. Yeah. B, it was not a show that I wanted to do. C, I got the show and I literally went to the audition and sort of did my own thing. I arranged a song and I just did it. You know, just sort of out of like ego and spite and like, you know, well, I'll just show y'all. And then they liked it. And they wanted me to do that same thing with the Teen Angel. And Tommy Tune took me to lunch and, you know, I was saying no. And my agent was like, you have to do it. And I was like, I hate Grease. Why on earth would I do something like this? And my agent had the foresight to understand that, you know, it was a package and, you know, it was less about the show and more about the people that I would meet. And sometimes that's more important. And, you know, he was right because I met Rosie O'Donnell and I was on her show, you know, more than anybody else. And she became a champion of mine. And so, you know, all of the things worked out. But it was a bittersweet moment for me because, you know, I knew the movie and the Teen Angel was a human being. He wore a white suit and a pompadour and sang a really pretty song. You know, I showed up to the first day of rehearsal and saw the costume sketch and literally cried and called my agent and was like, this is going to ruin my career. I was in a white spacesuit, and it wasn't just me, it was the whole design of the entire version of this show that was just completely over the top. So it's not, you know, it wasn't just me, but it was like, I was in 14 inches of orange rubber hair. I'm like, why do I have to be that? Why can't I just be a human being? Like, it was so hard for me, you know, because while I was getting this amazing opportunity that I loved having, I was being further and further, you know, hammered into this, like, this pigeonhole that was very, very clownish, you know, and I started referring to it as the Millennium Coon Show. I was like, I can't, it's like, I may as well be Step and Fetch It here. You know, it's like, there's nothing that coming out of this is going to, make anybody take me seriously as an artist. Nobody remembers that the job that I got after Grease was The Merchant of Venice at the Public Theater with Ron Liebman right after he had won his Tony for Angels in America. Nobody remembers that. That's the job that I left Grease to do. But nobody remembers that. You know, and it's hard because it's like, it's a moment where you're like, I'm so grateful for that moment. But at the same time, it took me 17 years after that, to finally and literally extracting myself from something that I loved doing and disappearing so that I could finally come back and be on the, be the person that they would call for Angels in America. That's what I wanted to do. I'm a serious, I'm fun and, all of that, but I have shit to say.
Well, let's get into this.
You know what I mean? Like, I have stuff to say.
Belize in the anniversary production of Angels in America. Absolutely brilliant. Because, I had seen you in Ghetto Superstar, which we're going to talk about too, but I want to talk about Angels in America. Incredible. I saw the originals on Broadway, but this revival blew me away.
Thank you.
And your performance. What was it like working with Tony, working with the cast, working with your director, and just recreating that role, or creating your version of that role?
Grease and Angels in America happened at the same time. And I was going to work every day with a pit in my stomach. And I was like, I'm living my dream. And I'm completely miserable. And why? Why, Lord, why am I miserable? I should not be miserable right now. And I happened to stumble into Angels in America that everybody was talking about. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. And I sat in that audience and it became crystal clear to me. It was the moment where I thought, wow, I have to come out to my mother. I have to come out to my family. I have to come out in my career. I have to have the courage to be who I am. There is no other version of the story that I can live. And I have to focus on what it is that I want to say as an artist. And that is what I want to say. And if it's not that, I don't need to do it. It took me a long time to get the courage to walk away from the career that was lucrative and that paid you, and sort of, release the ego enough to go, well, if I have to file for bankruptcy, I guess I will. If I have to go back to Pittsburgh and live with my mama, I guess I will. If I have to live on sofas and, put my stuff in storage and not have a place to live and float around for 13 years and live in virtual obscurity and break that ego down, I guess that's what I'm going to do. But if it's not that, and somebody literally said to me, probably like 5 or 6 years into my disappearance, where have you been? You need to be on Broadway. You need to be singing. You need to be blah, blah, blah. You need to be, don't you love how people tell you what you need to be doing? And I was like, okay. And they said, well, what would it take to get you back? And I said, nothing short of Angels in America. And what I meant by that was, if it didn't have that kind of resonance and importance, I wasn't interested in doing it anymore because I had done the other version. I hadn't poo-pooed it. I had done it. I did your Grease. I did your Five Guys Named Mo. I did your Smokey Joe's Cafe. I did it. I did it. Now I have something to say. And the moment that I put my foot down and said to the world at large, you have to see me as a human being. You have to hear me and you have to hear my story. The work dried up for a long time. And I thought, okay, that's just what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I suspected. That's why I ain't doing it no more.
Wow.
You don't understand it until you live it. And everybody has their own version. I'm not saying this, and like I said, let me say this and I hope that this comes across in the most positive way possible. Everybody has their cross to bear. Everybody in the world has their cross to bear. This was mine. And I knew that if I wanted to exist as an artist for the duration, something was going to have to change or I was going to burn myself out. And be of no use to anyone.
So then how did Angels come about for you?
Well, I had been gone. I'd been gone. I had, I say I had drifted into, virtual obscurity. People had sort of forgotten about me. I was writing and directing and living on the ethers and living on the outside. And they announced Angels in America. And I knew Tony because I had done a residency at the Public Theater under George Wolfe as a writer-director, and I worked really closely with them during the Carolina Change years, so I knew him from that. Ran into him at a dinner a year before for the Empire State Pride agenda, and I just said, I'll come out of semi-retirement for Angels. That's the one I want. Just so you know. I know it's a year away. Just think about it. And, I just put it out there. I put it out there, and it was so interesting because, like I knew there was some hemming and hawing about seeing me, oh, he's nice, he really an actor, oh, he might be too old, just all of the excuses that you get all the time. And I knew, somewhere deep inside of myself, I knew that if there was anything on the planet that was mine, it was this. And I knew that if I had the opportunity to get in the room, it was done. It would be a wrap. Because when I saw that show, it was the first time I had ever seen anybody that looked like me on an American stage. Anybody. The character of Belize was like, I had never seen anybody that looked like that. Just the care and the grace and the depth and the dimension and the humanity of that character was like, well, that's what I'm talking about. Now I know what my goal is, And so through a series of events, I got the audition, and, I went in and, I nailed it, and I knew that I nailed it, and I, and it was an amazing thing, because I knew that I had worked long and hard enough to earn my time in the room. I knew that. And I knew that, but I also knew that my time in the room was courtesy for that very reason. I knew it. You have to know in this business what's happening. You have to be aware. It's like, I'm not talking about my peers who know my work and are like, boy, please. Oh, child, please. That's yours. This. It's like, I'm not talking about my peers. I'm talking about the people who only know me from 14 inches of orange rubber hair. Those people do not think that I can do this. I know that. I'm aware of that. And the way that you prepare for something like that is very different from how you prepare when you know people are on your side. It's different. There's a different way of preparation for that. And I knew that the preparation that I had to have was not about me going in and being familiar with the material. I had to go in and give the performance that you would see when the lights came on the stage. And that's exactly what I did. So that when I walked into the room and literally I opened up my mouth and said that first line, I saw the whole table go. And I was in the room for 50 minutes. And they were like, well, just do it. Well, can you try it like this? Mm-hmm. We'll do it like this. Okay. We'll do it like this. All right. So then I left and I finished the audition. Tony Kushner got up from around the table, tears in his eyes, weeping, gave me a bear hug, and was like, I don't even know what to say. Thank you very much. Blah, 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 blah. I left. You know, he called the agency. He was like, he blew the roof off the joint. I had no idea. I knew he didn't have no idea. You have to know that. You have to know that. You know, you have to be clear in this world about what is going on around you. You have to know, you know? And so just yelling again. So so then I didn't hear anything for like, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks. And, you know, once again, it was one of those moments where I was like, listen, if they don't want me, it's not for me. But I know that I did the best that I could. My agent called me. And he was like, they want to see you again, and they want to, I was like, relax, relax. And I had been directing at this point many years. And I said, I turned them out so hard that they don't believe it's real. And they want to know, was it a fluke? Or can he do it 8 times a week? And be rest assured, I can do it 8 times a week. Relax. When's the audition? And I went back and I did this, and I was in the room once again for 55 minutes. They were like, it's like, yeah. If there's no other role on the planet, it's this one. And to scroll back, just briefly, before the audition, you know, it took so long for me to get the audition that the first audition came really quick. And so it came like 2 days, and my agent was panicked. He was like, well, they want to see you. It was a Monday, and they said, they want to see you on a Monday. They want to see you on Wednesday, and you have to prepare 3 scenes. And I was, calm down. There's one role in the entire pantheon that I have ever wanted that ever makes sense for me as an artist. If I don't already know every single word of this play, it's my fault. I know it. What scene, boo? What scene? I know it. What scenes? I know it. I know all of them. All of them. All 7.5 hours of it. I know it. I've been preparing for this for 20 years. Trust me, I know this play. You know, but that's the kind of work ethic, and that's the kind of focus that it takes for anybody. For anybody, not just me, for anybody. I tell this to my students all the time. You know, it's like, you're black and you're a musical theater performer and you're a man or a woman and you don't know Book of Mormon. So they call you and they want you to go in tomorrow and you don't know it at all? That's your fault. That's your fault. You don't know Lion King? That's your fault. You're not prepared. You're not doing your work. If you're not doing your work, then you can't expect the universe to show up for you. You can't. You cannot. You can't. You can't. And I say that all the time. I'm like, look at the landscape. I teach people. There was a girl, you know, in a class that I taught at Carnegie Mellon, and I said, well, do you know so-and-so and such and such? And she was a lovely African-American girl. And I'm like, you don't know. And she sang legit. And I'm like, and so you don't know anything that Audra McDonald has done. I'm like, you're not doing your work. I understand that you're young, but I'm telling you, you're a black girl who sings legit. That diva has 5 Tony Awards. You don't know her work? You don't know that there's a template for you? She created a template for you. You have to do your work. It's not, the days of I don't know how to find it are over. Get your ass on the internet and look for something. You know what I mean? It's like, so anyway, all right, what? Creative conversation. Creative conversation.
How are you on time?
She has a lot to say. What?
We're at 4:09. Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
whatever.
Fabulous. Good. All right, so Right? You don't want him to go yet, do you? This has been spectacular. So I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite afternoons I've ever spent. I talked to a lot of people, Mr. Porter, just so you know. So let's go back to Angels in America.
Yes.
Was it great to do with this cast?
Well, it was just the fact that it's this play, you know, and I grew up during the plague. I came of age. I came into my sexuality during this plague. To be able to go back to it and actually be in a cast where I was sort of, outside of the older adults, I was sort of like the patriarch because I was the older one. I had actually lived it. You know, these other guys were acting it. I had actually lived it. You know, and then to have Tony Kushner in the room and Michael Greif in the room leading you. Tony Kushner rewrote Perestroika Part 2 on us. He was not done. You know, it was like full-on graduate school in everything. In directing, in writing, in acting, in producing, in lighting design, in set design, in costume. Like, it was literally we rehearsed for 10 weeks because we did both parts, and then we previewed for like 8 weeks, and then we ran for like, I want to say 8 or 9 months. It was the most remarkable, gratifying, satisfying experiences of my entire career. And I thought, oh, I can die and go to heaven now. And then Kinky Boots was like, well, I ain't ever gonna be able to do nothing else after this. And then Kinky Boots showed up, and you're like, oh, well, all right, Lord. Thank you.
Well, I also want to get into your one-man show. One of the best nights I ever spent in the theater was watching you at the Public Theater in Ghetto Superstar.
Thank you.
What was it like? Why did you create it at the time you did?
Well, going back to the journey and trying to find my voice and talking about how when I demanded my voice be heard, the work dried up, I realized that and as I started writing, I went to graduate school at the screenwriting program at UCLA. I lived out there for 3 years, and I realized, oh, people write what they know. The true writers write what they know. If you look at the ones that we sort of revere the most, it's really the same story over and over again. Whether it's Tennessee Williams, whether it's Clifford Odets, whether it's, you know, William Shakespeare, whether it's like you write what you know. And it's like, so I can't sit and wait for other people to write my story when they don't know my story. You know, and so I really knew that I needed to find a way to tell it. And there wasn't anywhere for me to sort of fit into to tell it. So I just thought, oh, well, I saw Elaine Stritch. Why can't I do that? So I did. That's how it came about. Yeah. And George Wolfe really, you know, was my leader and mentor on that.
When you were creating it, did you learn a lot more about yourself when you were putting it together?
I think writing is the great, at least for me and my experience, writing is the great healer. Because when you get things on paper and then you can sort of see it reflected back at yourself, you can navigate through things, at least for myself, I found that I could navigate my way through emotional terrain that I didn't quite understand before I could see it, visibly see it. So yeah, that was what it was like for me working on that piece.
Yeah. I also want to talk about directing.
Yes.
I had friends see your reimagining of The Wiz in Pittsburgh, which they said was absolutely brilliant. You did was it Signed, Sealed, Delivered?
Yes.
The music of Stevie Wonder with Chaka Khan. You like directing, don't you?
I do. Like I said, there's a, I mean, George Wolfe says that I'm a control freak. So he just says, "You're just a control freak. You're just a control freak. That's the reason why you need to direct." And I guess there's a part of it that is that, but I also I like being able to shape the narrative, and show a different side of things that maybe and ask different questions that maybe other people have not asked yet. So I really do enjoy it, For instance, I did a version of Once on This Island out in Los Angeles at Reprise, which is the sort of LA equivalent of Encores. And I won the NAACP award for directing for that. And, what was interesting was that when it was initially done, it was told from the perspective of the peasants. And it was 2008. We were inside of the Obama campaign the first time. Or 2008, right? 2008. And I thought, where in the source material does it say that this story has to be told from the perspective of the peasants? Why can't it be told from the perspective of the aristocrats? There's nowhere where it says that it's not in a specific voice. It's just a story that's being told. And so I flipped it. And I told it from the perspective of the aristocrats. And, it's stuff like that. It's like, it's 2008. We're about to have a black president. Yeah. I don't want to see my people running around barefoot in shrouds that have no structure. I don't want to see that. I want to see a different version. Not that there was anything wrong. And at the time when it was originally written, yes, that was where we were. It's a different time. Yeah. So the work that we see needs to reflect the time that we're in. It's a different day. It's a new day. So that's why I enjoy having the reins, and hopefully I'll be able to, use whatever this kinky boots thing is for me to kind of harness that more in a broader way for myself.
Because you did a beautiful job with your Sondheim show, which was called Being Alive, The Soul of Sondheim.
Thank you.
Talk about working on that and working with Stephen.
Well, it came about because I was, I've always been obsessed with Sondheim, and, once again, there's no real place. There hadn't been a real place for people of color in his shows before, and I didn't understand that. With the exception of Felicia Rashad in Into the Woods, and then ultimately Vanessa Williams later, I was obsessed. And, I ended up auditioning for that revival of Into the Woods. And I auditioned for The Baker and ended up actually getting cast as the witch. And then September 11th happened. And the producers, who were a little bit antsy about that choice, rescinded the offer. And it went to, Vanessa Williams, who was amazing in the show. And but it was a safer choice. It was the more traditional choice, and they didn't feel like there was, just sort of money-wise, they didn't feel like they could take that kind of choice. But as a result of that journey, Mr. Sondheim really enjoyed me as an interpreter of his work. And so I pitched him the idea. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, if you think you can come up with something. So I did. Once again, I did the work, though. You know, it wasn't like I want to do this and then I let it fall by the wayside. I came up with the concept. I came up with the idea. I wrote it out. I wrote the script. I sent it to him. I had a meeting. He was like, this is fully formed. Go ahead. Try it. You know, we went through many different incarnations. And, you know, working that closely with one of the masters that's also really sort of, I mean, I think about the fact that I was in his house and he was giving me notes on a show that I was developing with his music. And, you know, he's one of the last of a generation where theater is the brass ring. Theater's not the lily pad jump to their film career or to their television career. It's like, no, theater for him is the ultimate. So there's a different kind of energy. You know, he would call me or email me and ask me my opinion about things in relation to the show and give me like a real true collaboration. And it was just, I treasure it. I really, really treasure it. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced, especially, you know, just knowing that he's like the godfather of all things at this point. It's like I get to say that I
created a Sondheim show.
Yeah.
And beautifully done.
Thank you.
So you want to record again, don't you? Want to do a new album?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any ideas of what you want to do? Or
yeah, I'm actually in the process now of sort of scouting record companies. And I have this idea to do an album called The Standard, but it's well, thank you. It's a piece that I've been sort of developing for the last few years, and it's what I call the contemporary American standard. So it's sort of it's like, you know, Stevie Wonder and Alita Adams and Donny Hathaway and Earth, Wind and Fire and the Beatles and you know, that kind. It's like, how do we take the songs that are actually a little bit more current and mark them as standards? Because for me, a standard, Elton John is in there, Bonnie Raitt is in there. Because for me, a standard is a song that can withstand the test of time. And there are lots of those types of songs being written. And then my idea is to take the material that I've chosen and then deconstruct it and, you know, produce it in a way sort of like that Annie Lennox Medusa album that was sort of all covers, but you could turn it on and it was a different experience. You know, it was like, oh, wait, do I know this song? You know, like I'm interested in kind of maybe pushing the envelope in that way a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. But that's sort of
that sounds
what I'm working on.
Well, I want to open this. There are a few questions from the audience members here that I want to put out here. Where's Damien Deshawn Smith? Is that Damien Smith? Great. His question is, Billy, Adam Gettle's awaiting you. Where the hell do you breathe?
That was in my youth, and I didn't have to breathe. Nowadays, I would sing that down about a fourth, and I would breathe every 2 bars.
The 40 range, right?
Yeah, the 40 I would be in my 40-year-old keys.
Fabulous.
And I would be breathing maybe every 4 bars.
Fabulous. From the dance perspective, is this show your biggest challenge or have there been others? Who wrote this question? Somebody, a mystery person.
From the dance perspective?
Yeah. Is this show your biggest challenge, dancing in heels, probably in the boots and everything?
Well, you know, not really. I mean, I was a dancer. You know, I've been a dancer for a long time, studied, you know, extensively. I'm just happy to be back doing it, you know. I like to joke and say I'm dancing in the front like Cheetah. You know, because I don't think a whole lot of people know that part of my background, because I came to town and, you know, I was known as a singer and nobody really knew that I could dance like that. So it's nice. It's fun to sort of show another side of myself.
Yeah. This question is from LB. Did you have a network of support along the way? If so, what kind? Or has it changed over the years for you?
Yeah, my main network of support was my mother and my sister in conjunction with my classmates from college. That was the main support system. Through the years, I've picked up other angels along the way. You know, my manager, once agent, now manager, has been a constant supporter, Bill Butler, of 22 years I've been with, and not many people can say that. And, you know, there's a lovely Broadway producer and her husband, Susie Dietz and Lenny Beer, who sort of swooped me up a few years back and kind of really just helped to nurture me and, you know, in the lean years. You know, the George Wolfes of the world, the Michael Greifs of the, you know, just little angels that kind of
pop in,
you know, City Theater in Pittsburgh, Tracy Brigden down there, who, you know, sort of gave me a space to come and work. So there have been lots of angels along the way.
The final audience question is, it's sort of a two-parter. How do you prepare before each performance? And even though the show is open and frozen, are there changes made?
Okay, the first part of the question, I warm up my voice, I warm up my body. I turn on my gospel music because that's basically what I listen to all the time. You know, if you're not a spiritual person coming into my space, you will be once you're done. So there's that. And then I sit in my makeup chair and Guy Smith, my amazing makeup artist, paints my face. And it's a moment where it's about 45 minutes where there has to be a stillness. Even if I have to do other things, there's a part of me that has to be still. And it really sort of helps to center me and get me prepared for the journey that I'm about to take. And, you know, it's very interesting. I always say, and I joke with my glam squad, you know, Richard and on my wigs and my dresser Josh and Guy, who are always following me around. I always feel like, you know, some sort of fabulous movie star or something. You know, no matter how drained or tired I am when I come in, and sometimes I will be literally sitting in the chair, like nodding off. You know, I call it the spirit of Judy. The spotlight hits me and the spirit of Judy enters my body. I don't know if that is something that I should be proud of.
It is.
Because she was slightly crazy, but I guess we all are in this business. And I love that. I love that I don't have to be concerned about whether I'm tired or exhausted or can I do it. That never enters my brain. It's like literally I can be dozing off in the chair and 15 minutes later, I'm Lola. And there's something about the work. You know, it's like once the train leaves the station, the energy that's behind it carries me through. It's great.
And changes? Are there still changes being made?
Not changes per se. I mean, it's a living, breathing organism. And I love that I get to work with Stark Sands, who, as an actor, also lives and breathes in the moment. And we really have a playful energy, you know, so that I really try to be wherever I am on that particular day and allow the story to be told from that day, from that moment, as opposed to trying to replicate something that happened the day before, because you can never really. That's what I love about theater. That's the magic of it, is that Yes, you're seeing the same show. Yes, the journey is the same. The music is the same. But how you sing and caress those notes and tell that story, it's living, it's breathing, it's human, and it's different every day.
My final question for you
Yes.
is, what's the best bit of advice you've been given that you still live by?
Wow. It seems so simple to say, but it's really, really hard to do sometimes. And that is to be in the moment that you're in. You have to be in the moment that you're in. And I try to exercise that every day, you know, especially in this crazy time, you know, where it's like people are pulling at you from every, you know, different angle, and the awards and the blah, 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 and what are you doing next? And da-da-da-da. It's like, what am I doing next? Going to the Al Hirschfeld Theater to do this show in an hour and a half. You know, like, that's what I'm, you know, it's like you have to find a way to stay grounded so that the work stays grounded and present. And so that you can tell the stories truthfully and reach the people in a positive way.
Well, I want to thank you for one of the best afternoons that I've spent.
Thank you.
Let's hear it for Billy Porter.
Thank you.